It started with a gentle, rhythmic tapping. Then, it grew into a persistent, daily thump-thump-thump. For the people in the quiet apartment building, it was an unbearable disturbance, a violation of their peace. Notes were slipped under the door. Complaints were filed with the landlord. Everyone agreed, the noisy neighbor had to be stopped. In apartment 3B lived Mrs. Alara, a widow who had kept to herself since moving in a few months prior. She was often seen returning with bags of groceries, her eyes usually downcast, a faint, sad smile her only greeting. Her neighbors knew little about her, only that she seemed to keep odd hours and now created this constant, muffled noise. Next door, in 3A, was Ben, a young writer working from home. The noise was the bane of his existence, shattering his concentration daily. Downstairs, the retired couple, the Millers, found their afternoon teas disrupted by the ceaseless thumping from above. A consensus formed in the building's group chat. They would confront her together. One Tuesday evening, as the thumping began its evening session, Ben rallied his courage. Mr. and Mrs. Miller joined him in the hallway, their faces set in polite but firm resolve. They knocked on the door of 3B. After a moment, the door opened just a crack. Mrs. Alara's weary face appeared. "Yes? Can I help you?" Ben cleared his throat. "Mrs. Alara, we're sorry to bother you. But the noise. It's quite constant. We were wondering if you could keep it down." His voice was strained, trying to balance frustration with civility. Mrs. Alara's eyes filled with a profound, recognizable sadness and a flicker of panic. "The noise? Oh, I am so very sorry. I try to be quiet." "It's just," Mrs. Miller interjected softly, "it's all day, dear. A constant bumping. It's very disruptive." A tear escaped down Mrs. Alara's cheek. Her voice was a fragile whisper. "It's my son. I'm so sorry. He doesn't know any better." And with that, she gently closed the door, leaving the three neighbors standing in stunned, confused silence. The landlord, Mr. Davies, agreed to a formal inspection. He met the concerned neighbors outside 3B and knocked firmly. When Mrs. Alara opened the door, her face was pale with resignation. She simply nodded and stepped back, inviting them in. The apartment was spotless, but sparsely furnished. And then, they saw the source of the noise. In the middle of the living room was a hospital bed. And in it was a young man, perhaps in his 20s, lying still, his eyes closed. Attached to the bed was a large pneumatic pad, rhythmically inflating and deflating with a soft thump-thump-thump, a percussion mattress to prevent bed sores. Beside the bed, on a small table, was a photo of a smiling, vibrant young man in a graduation gown, his arm around Mrs. Alara. It was him. Mrs. Alara walked to the bed, took her son's still hand in hers, and her voice broke the heavy silence. "His name is Leo," she said. "A year ago, he was in an accident. The doctors say he might not wake up. But I talk to him. I play his favorite music. And this," she gestured to the machine, "this keeps his body safe while we wait for his mind to come back to us." She looked at the stunned faces of her neighbors. "I play the radio for him. Sometimes, I even dance with him, just to move his arms." That must have been the other noise. "I'm so sorry. I thought if we were quiet enough, we wouldn't be a burden." Ben felt the world drop out from under him. The terrible, intrusive noise was the sound of a mother's vigil. The thumping was the heartbeat of her hope. Mr. Davies, the landlord, was the first to speak, his voice thick. "Mrs. Alara, why didn't you tell us?" "I was afraid," she admitted, her gaze fixed on her son. "I was afraid you'd ask us to leave. This is the only place I could afford that was close to his clinic. We have nowhere else to go." The following day, there was no noise complaint in the group chat. Instead, there was a message from Ben. "Baking extra cookies today. Bringing some to 3B. Anyone want to join?" Mrs. Miller responded, "I'll make a pot of soup." A transformation, quiet and deep, swept through the building. The thump-thump-thump was no longer an irritant. It became a reminder, a call to attention. Ben started stopping by to read chapters of his book to Leo. The Millers began delivering homemade meals every other day. Another neighbor, a nurse, offered to sit with Leo so Mrs. Alara could take a walk in the sun. The confrontation in the hallway had not been an ending, but a beginning. It peeled back the thin walls between them to reveal the profound struggles happening in silence. They had complained about a noise, but the truth inside was a story of unwavering love, a mother's silent battle, and a loneliness they had all almost enforced. One evening, weeks later, the group was in Mrs. Alara's apartment, sharing a meal. The rhythmic thump of the mattress played in the background, now a familiar, almost comforting sound. Mrs. Alara looked around at her neighbors, her eyes shining. "You've given me more than quiet," she said. "You've given me hope. And you've given Leo more voices to listen for on his way back." The noise never stopped. But now, it was surrounded by the sounds of community, the clatter of dishes, the murmur of conversation, and the gentle, healing power of understanding. We are so quick to judge the disturbances in our lives, to label them as nuisances. But sometimes, if we dare to look closer, we find that the most persistent noise is simply the sound of someone else's heart, fighting a battle we cannot see. A little empathy can turn a complaint into a connection, and a stranger into family. Share this story if it reminded you to listen for the truth behind the noise.